Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic. My name is Bill Lester. I'm with University of Florida Extension Service here in Hernando County, and joining me today is our Hernando County Florida-friendly landscape coordinator, Colby Pitts. Good morning, Colby. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing well.
And one of our Master Gardener volunteers, Bernie. We always save all the hard questions for Bernie. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. I'm in the mood for a hard question.
Okay, good. Well, I think what I did this morning was I accidentally scheduled this for 10:05. So I think it was my fault while I said we have 5 minutes left. But 10:05, whenever, we come on here, we try to do it every week to be able to answer all of your questions, all of your lawn care, landscaping, trees, citrus, water, everything, whatever kind of questions you have, we're here to answer them. Good morning, Ailes. How are you doing? Somebody from YouTube on here with us. So, Ailes, I guess it's on you. If you have a question, go ahead and ask in the chat. Or, Bill, if you have a question also, feel free to put your question in the chat, and we'll do our very best to answer it. See, what are we going to talk about? Let's talk about the weather. The weather all of a sudden has become very, very nice, and it feels like spring out there. And my guess is in about a week or so, it will feel like summer, and then that'll be it. It'll just be summer for the next, 8, 9, 10 months.
This next couple of weeks is really critical if you want to do weed control. If you're one of those people that doesn't like weeds, they're going to just pop up. So the pre-emergent is maybe a little late, but it'll still help. And now, before those weeds get to be very big, is the perfect time to zap them. The younger they are, the easier they die. And if you let them get to be 6-8 inches, it's going to be harder and harder to get rid of them. So if you want to do something about weeds, do it in the next 2 weeks.
Yep. Because with that rain we got the other day, all of a sudden, all the different random late winter, early spring weeds in my lawn, poof, they all just came up literally overnight.
Yeah, now if you're doing a freedom lawn, you can leave them alone and not worry about it.
That's what I do. If I put down a weed killer, I just have a lot of bare dirt and I get yelled at. So we let the whatever's going to grow out there, and I keep it cut. But it's very, very important time of year for vegetable gardens also. You really need to plan on those cool season wintertime vegetables, finishing up and picking them very, very soon, because you need to get your spring things in pretty much now, today. Because I don't think that we're going to have any more freezes or frosts. It's supposed to be like about 50 degrees or so overnight, every night for the next week. But that's not damaging to vegetables. So you should be safe to put the warm season things in now. And the earlier you get them in, the quicker they'll be up and growing and hopefully giving you some food before the insects and diseases really start to set in later on in the spring. And Ale said that their broccoli didn't do well this year. It started flowering early. That can happen. Broccoli is somewhat sensitive to warm temperatures. That's why you definitely want to grow it just in the winter. If we have an unusually warm winter, or if the temperatures keep bouncing up and down, it gets really warm, really cold, really warm, really cold, that can throw it off also and get your broccoli to grow and get large, and it's going to get the little clump of broccoli on it, but it's going to flower. So you have to keep an eye on those clumps of broccoli, and you have to pick the magical perfect day to pick it, where it's as big as it's going to get, but it's not starting to flower or loosen up yet. So it can be a little tricky to go just by sight and figure out what day it is best to pick it on. But I agree, guys, Bernie, broccoli in the winter is one of the easiest things to grow here. Very, very easy. Broccoli, radishes, lettuce. I mean, you're always going to get something.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame though that there are so many people that don't enjoy the you know, everybody was raised on meat and potatoes. And then it depended on what went with them. So if your dad was a meat and potatoes only guy, that's probably what kind of a person you grew up to be. And if your dad liked everything, you probably like everything. It's really funny that
Yeah.
the male tends to set how that's going to be. Uh, the woman tends to cook whatever people like. So your mom would fix you whatever dad wanted, and that's what you grew up liking. I was very fortunate. My family, we all ate everything. Dad was one of the prime cooks, and I don't know of anything he didn't like. So uh,
Pretty much same here. I cook very well. There's really very few foods that I really don't like, and I'm willing to try darn near anything, really. I love sushi, lots of different unusual things.
at
Um,
least once, try everything
exactly.
once. Now your mic's not on, Colby.
I was saying I'm a picky eater. It's actually like a point of stress. It's a point of stress that I got all kinds of like sensory issues. So there's just certain things I can't do, and I'm the type of person, man. I'd be happy if I ate a ham sandwich every night for the rest of my life. It'd be fine with me. But
Was your dad the same way?
no, my dad eats. My dad doesn't like green beans, and I really don't like green beans, and that's about it. That's the only thing I could think off the top of my head. Like my parents, my siblings, they all ate everything. It was just me that that was the black sheep that wouldn't eat a lot of stuff.
Well, you know, Colby, that is like a perfect segue into what I'm going to share in a moment here. This week is National Invasive Species Week. So I know that on our Facebook page and a lot of other social media pages, they're showcasing different invasive plants and animals and insects and trying to raise awareness of that. And I saw one that I honestly was not aware of at all. I'm not sure if Teresa is in the background watching or not, but here, let me go ahead and share this one with you. This is from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and this little animal here is called a nutria. I had never heard of them before. It's kind of it lives in marshy areas. It's like a large rat, small hedgehog. It's invasive, and apparently they do a lot of damage to swamp areas. They can defoliate and damage swampy areas very, very quickly. But apparently they're fairly tasty also. So it says that the meat has been compared to rabbit or even the dark meat of turkey. If your state has nutria, and I don't even know if we have them in Florida or not, they're in Louisiana. I'm not sure if it's an issue here in Florida. Always check your local regulations first. Um, don't start hunting anything in your backyard if you live in an urban or suburban area. You might get in a lot of trouble for that. But apparently, there's a lot of information online about how to cook them up and have yourself a fine dinner there. Um, Save some money and help reduce the number of invasive nutrias in your area. So,
Yeah,
Colby, are you looking up if nutrias are in Florida?
I
I actually know about nutrias a
Oh,
little
okay.
bit. So the nutria, it was brought over. You look at that guy; he looks kind of similar to a beaver. They're brought over in the 1800s because of the fur. So the fur trade, real big deal back then. Eventually, fur trade collapses. These things escape captivity, and now they're everywhere. There are some. I think the most concentrated population of these guys are in like Jacksonville, like up north, North Florida. But I know that people have seen them down as far south as like Tampa and maybe even Sarasota. They since they're an invasive species, they're very much managed like the feral hogs. So there's no, to my knowledge, there's no, they can be hunted, trapped year round, no bag limit. The same as pigs. But like we don't have, I'm pretty confident in Hernando County we don't have big roaming packs of nutria. Not like we have hogs. Yeah. But that's and just to finish up right quick, this is the same as with your plants and your other things. Be sure to use the FWC website or app. I've got one. If you see a nutria, that's the best way because that's how they determine a lot of those populations. I think that app lets you, the app and the website both let you upload pictures if you see stuff like that. So that's for your invasive plants and animals. And then the action is then taken based off of those public reports. It's a really good, I think there's a lot of those, like you said, different groups, programs, organizations that are talking about invasive plants this week. And you're going to see that I'vegotone.org just about everywhere. Because that is the way that the public can, like, it's you can help. You can plug in GPS coordinates for all that stuff, which you can get on your iPhone. So it's a really good thing that you can do to kind of do your part in this a little bit different type of conservation.
Yes, very important that you report these kind of things so that the state knows exactly how far and wide they've spread. And maybe you would be making the first report in your county or in your area. And thankfully, we don't have packs of these animals roaming Hernando County. And it makes me wonder, when we had our huskies, what would they have done if they had found one of these in our backyard? Wouldn't have worked out well for the nutria, probably.
No. And I can tell you as well, I just looked it up. You actually can even do, you have to get a permit for it. So most of the time, you're not allowed to hunt animals with lights at night. A good exception to that rule is the feral hogs. You can with those. You can also hunt nutria at night with a light. You just have to get a permit to do it. A lot of times you can't hunt your normal game species by at night. It's kind of not fair, I don't think. But the nutria they're trying to get rid of, so you are allowed to do it there.
Okay, well, I've officially learned something new today. This is one that I really wasn't that familiar with. But Cindy points out that she lives in Pinellas County, and they got notification that the carrotwood tree is invasive. Oh, yes, it is. We really don't have carrotwoods here in Hernando County, do we? Are we a little bit too far north?
I don't think I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
That I don't even think that those are in the Southwest Florida Water Management District's coverage area. I was down south in Sarasota. I've never seen one, but they are. I think that's all like Broward County, like tip of the state of Florida. But it's getting warmer, so by nature, these things eventually, I'm sure that they'll creep their way up, as these things typically do.
And being in Pinellas County, if we have a couple of warm winters, those things that normally are in South Florida spread a little bit further north. Then you have a really cold winter, and then they all get knocked way back. And there isn't ever a specific line in the ground where, they're south of here, but they're not north of here. It varies a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, carrotwood trees are invasive. And it looks like Teresa is here with us, or I don't know. Somebody else share this?
It was me.
Oh, okay. Yes, carrotwood trees are invasive. Gosh, Florida has so many different invasive plants. I had a book of them. I'll have to dig it up sometime. And it's ridiculously thick. And it's not even current. It's a number of years old. So you can take that and add some more to it when it comes to how many different invasive plants we have here in Florida.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something I always like to talk about when we get on to invasive plants is how many of our invasive plants are from like South Asia. And I always like to point that it's because the latitude is similar, so they tend to have a similar climate. And those plants, like, it's like, the plants might as well be at home. They don't know the difference. So It's kind of funny. Like you can draw, I mean, we're on a globe, but as straight of a line as you can between here and where those plants are from. They're all from like Cambodia and like Vietnam and stuff like that, which tends to have similar climates.
Uh-huh. Good morning, Veronica. How are you? Yeah, and it's funny how even other crops and plants that aren't invasive, we've deliberately moved around the world. If you take a globe of the world, just draw a line all the way around, that's where they're grown. Like cacao that we get chocolate from is native to Central and South America, but the vast majority of it that you would get in chocolate bars, most of the chocolate we get now is grown in Africa because we took the trees, moved them to Africa, similar climates, and we grow it there. They grow it all the way around the world, wherever the climate is appropriate for it.
Yeah, it's also kind of interesting that you can, that latitude being the same. You can also look at the longitude and flipping over. If you're the same distance from the equator, a lot of the times you're gonna have the same climate too. So it's like a strange mirrored band of all the stuff that grows in Florida because it's like, oh, it's Southeast Asia or I don't know, northern Brazil. So it's really interesting how all that stuff works.
It's really kind of interesting. If you take the globe, we're roughly 28 degrees north latitude. If you go west, you go through the desert southwest and through Mexico. If you go east, you go through the Sahara Desert and the Arabian Peninsula. Then you go through India, you go through China, and you're back to the desert southwest. So for the most part, there aren't a tremendous number of plants and that little band. That's a transition zone everywhere on Earth. So the thing that happens in Florida is that we should be a desert like everybody else, but we have this unusual situation of having water on both sides. So the ocean breeze drops down in central Florida and takes care of the west coast, and the Gulf breeze drops down in central Florida and takes care of the east coast, and we're not a desert. If we were right up next to Texas, we would be desert. Or if we were over against the coast of Africa, we would be a desert. We're very unique. So we have this warm temperature, and all the plants from us into the tropics survive here, or they grow here. I won't say they survive because a lot of those plants, once it gets cold, which we do get every winter, they drop off. But all the plants that want to be in the warm and be around warm year round, they all survive here and do very, very well. And that puts us, half of the world has got plants that are going to survive here. And half of the world north of us have plants that may or may not survive here. So we are that unique situation, the little dividing area between all the warm weather plants, all the cold weather plants. And so once a month, basically, we get a new exotic invasive. And it's a shame because the state spends a tremendous amount of money to get rid of them.
And if you look like South Asia, that big peninsula that's got like Cambodia and Vietnam and all that, that's a peninsula. The southern tip of India is a peninsula where they have these similar climate as we do. But then the middle of Mexico, right across the Gulf, is a desert, the same way that it is in Africa because of the larger landmass. It's a super interesting thing. Another good illustration for that is that the type of stuff they grow in Greece and Italy tends to grow in California because they are also in very similar, and you can make those connections like all over the world with the type of stuff that will grow.
The funny one is that at our latitude, nowhere on Earth is there a native grass that will produce a lawn. That's one of the very few plants that doesn't want to be here no matter what you do. We are not northern enough for the northern grasses, and we're not southern enough for the southern grasses. And unfortunately, There is no place on earth. None of those other spots have a grass that produces a lawn. There's millions of grasses. People don't realize how many grasses they are. Actually, corn is a grass.
Mhm.
So with all those plants, Kogan grass is perfectly happy here. That's
Oh
one of
yeah.
the grasses that comes from somewhere else. But when you talk about things like the fescues or those perennial rye, the things that make a pretty lawn, they're not going to grow here, and
All of the
such a big problem.
all those native grasses from other places pretty much kind of just look like muley grass. They grow like that, and they're not like turf grass things. And there's a point. Turf grass pretty illogical in Florida.
I thought it was kind of an interesting thing that none of the lawn grasses in current use in North America originated in North America. Every one of the lawn grasses that we have came from somewhere else. And the when you name a product Kentucky bluegrass and it didn't come from Kentucky, that's cheating. So we need to have a Florida something that people grow. And
I mean, there's enough Kogan grass here. I wonder if we could steal that one. Wouldn't want to, but
send that
it is
to
an
the rest
option.
of the world.
Yeah, I think Kogan grass is from like sub-Saharan Africa. I think.
You realize instead of going to war with people, if we just sent them Kogan grass, eventually it would take over their country for us.
Yeah, right. It's an invader for sure. That's a real rough one.
Well, Veronica said that she visited the Echo Farm in Fort Myers. I've been there. It's been a number of years, but it was very, very interesting. They have plants and crops from all over the world that are all edibles, but an awful lot of them are really unusual, oddball things that you would never think of, things that are appropriate to be planted in third world countries to help people improve their food systems. And they give tours, they sell seeds, they have plant sales there. So if anybody's ever in Fort Myers, try looking up Echo Farm and visit there. I'd highly recommend it. And Anne Marie has a question about bay leaf trees. She had two of them. One of them froze and it grew back slowly. The other one had to be replaced due to hurricane destruction. And she bought another one. She's going to try to plant it in a more protected area. It's a wonderful spice for many soups and stews and sauces. Yes, you're correct. Those are bay leaves that you would buy at the grocery store. The problem with that is we have an invasive bark beetle or ambrosia beetle that kills bay trees and a number of other trees that are all in that genus, including avocados. And I just pulled up something. Give me a second here. Let me go ahead.
Yeah, it really damaged the red bay tree population in Florida. Red bay was one of those trees nobody ever noticed it was there. And when the beetle went through it, it started in the northern part of the state, and it was just like you drew a line that slowly moved down across the state. And you would go in any forested area, and there would be like 10% of the trees are dead. All the leaves are still on the tree. That it died so quick that didn't give a chance to get rid of the leaves, and they're brown. And then it was obvious how many bay trees that we actually had as natives. So I would think probably between 5 and 10% of the native forests were bay trees, and they're gone. There's almost none left in the state.
Is a bay leaf tree, is that the same thing as a sweet bay?
The one that you grow for the bay leaf spice is a tropical tree. It's not native to the U.S. I don't believe.
Oh, it's like it's a sweet bay laurel. That's all the same thing, I think.
Yeah. It's closely related.
Okay.
It's not the exact same as what grows wild in the woods here.
Mm-hmm.
Because
the landscape plant.
Yeah.
Bay landscape.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have not heard it called a bay leaf tree, but I haven't known about that one very long. Interesting. So many different common names for everything. It gets kind of confusing. Because I know that there's also like a magnolia tree that's called a sweet bay, but that's like I know that that's a completely different thing.
Yeah, that's totally different genus. I was amazed how many the red bays that we had. Uh, there was a couple areas out in the east where probably 25% of the trees uh, were bay leaf, red bay. But the thing about it is they were an understory tree, and you didn't really notice them. And when they turned all brown, then they became really noticeable, and that was a problem. So normally plants have a way of dropping the leaves. Obviously, they do it up north, uh, and they produce a little chemical when things aren't right, and it just cuts the adhesion to the stem of the leaf to the plant, and the leaves fall off. Well, if the plant dies quick enough, the leaves don't ever have that happen, and they change color, and you see it. But normally, the plants get sick, and they die over a period of time, and the leaves slowly come off. So you don't notice what's going on. But if you have this little bug running around chomping on your trees, man, is it obvious. Only took the university said only took 2 spores to start the inoculation to be serious enough that the tree would die.
Yeah.
2 spores.
Now, the edible bay leaf tree would be Laurus nobilis, and it has a bunch of different common names: bay laurel, sweet bay, true laurel, and it is native to the Mediterranean region, which for most of us here in Florida means it's probably not going to do really, really well here because our climate is not Mediterranean. Ours is kind of wet, subtropical. So Mediterranean, a lot of Mediterranean crops struggle very badly here during the summer because they're not happy with all the rain, the heat, humidity. So I know that you can go online and you can buy it from an online nursery and get a little tree and grow it. You probably want to, Anne-Marie, you probably want to put it in a spot where it's going to get some shade during the summer, and realize that once it gets really hot and humid and rainy in the summer, it's not going to do that well. It might have problems with, if you have it growing outdoors where it gets rained on, it's going to get too much rain and the roots are going to get too wet and it's going to die. Because I know a lot of Mediterranean herbs, they don't necessarily die during the summer, but they struggle. They kind of take a dive during the heat of summer for a while. It looks like Bernie's looking something up.
Yeah, and it isn't in our publication, so.
Yeah, but there's a link to the different common bay trees of Florida. The funny thing is just the common bay trees that were all killed off by that beetle. The woods and wooded areas here were full of those trees, and nobody ever noticed them because they're not really special. They don't get protected. They're not huge like a live oak. They don't flower. They don't really stand out. But when they all turn brown and die, I got a lot of phone calls about them. Oh my gosh, what's happening in the woods at the end of my street? It's all filled with brown dead trees. They're all bay trees. It's not all the trees, just bay trees. And the beetle actually spread and moved through this area.
Yeah, it's like the Chickasha plum. You don't notice them until they're in bloom. So when they're in bloom, my gosh, it's beautiful. And when they're not, they're an understory tree, and they're just not eye-catching. They just blend in so well with everything. Nobody even knows they're there.
So, Anne-Marie, since you live up in the Panhandle, you still obviously, it still gets hot during the summer at your house, and you still, have to deal with hurricanes and lots of rain. It may grow a little bit better there than, let's say, if somebody was trying to grow it in South Florida, because there it gets even steamier. And we have links to blog posts here if you'd like to look more into the culinary bay laurel. And Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's examples about when they grow really large and really well, but it's really probably not the best suited thing for Florida.
That's one of those things I've often wondered. Bay leaves that you buy are usually dry, and I just wondered if they didn't lose a lot of essential oils, a lot of things that um, would actually improve their ability as a spice. That you know, if you had a fresh bay leaf, would it produce a much better flavoring agent than one of the leaves that you buy that is already kind of dried up?
I don't know. I know a lot of herbs you can dry, and it works very well. It doesn't lose potency. I mean, eventually it will after enough time, but other ones tend to be better fresh than dried. So I'm not sure where bay leaves really fall into that spectrum. Got kind of a question slash comment from Ailes that they read, due to climate change, population growth, supply issues, and inflation, there is a possible food scarcity and higher prices. I think we've lived with that possibility for tens of thousands of years at this point. I can't see into the future. Obviously, things come up like bird flu is impacting a number of bird species along with chickens. That's why one of the reasons why eggs are so expensive at your grocery store. These things definitely constantly come and go, and there's always a chance that something's going to happen with commercially raised, whether it be chickens or cattle or something. And you know what we do here? Thank you so much for giving me a chance to give myself a plug. What we do here with Hernando County Extension is we really focus a lot and have really since the very beginning of COVID, because even before that, people have vegetable gardens, people would attend our classes on growing different various edibles and this and that. But since COVID, it really got a lot more people interested, whether it's a garden, a food forest, being more making yourself and your family more sustainable, interest in everything from raising bees to growing fruit crops, growing up, people raising goats. You see a lot more of that now. So we try to put together a lot of information, a lot of classes, a lot of kind of beginner classes to give people an idea of what you need to know and how to go about setting things up. We've had several classes. Give
Colby,
me a
if you
second
don't
here, and
mind.
I'll look and see if I can find it on Hernando County.
Obviously, at some point, with the current reproduction rate, we reach a point where the Earth is no longer capable of providing enough food. So, uh, and if you think only in terms of conventional agriculture, yes, we do run into a place where we can no longer sustain uh, the food needs. But if you look at the research that's being done, things like the rooftop gardens, some aquaponics, it might be possible that you tear down a car garage someplace, put up an aquaponics facility, and feed an entire community. Or so. Uh, it, right now, within the limits of man's imagination, I can't see where uh, food production is going to be a problem in the near future. I can see where the expense to do it will continue to go up.
So here, let me put another shameless plug in. If you go on YouTube, Hernando County Government has a YouTube channel, and we have a lot of our past classes that we recorded up here that you could watch. We did do several classes called So You Have 5 Acres, and it gives people the basics of what you need to kind of keep in mind to if you're thinking about putting in a pasture, if you want to have livestock, you want to have horses. We've done it things that you need to know, and responsibilities you're going to have if you decide to raise chickens or goats. So plan first, buy chickens second. Don't go out there and buy chickens and then figure out how the heck you're going to raise them. But we have a lot of those classes, a lot of information on individual crops. Sweet potatoes, that was a very good class. And boy, sweet potatoes are a breeze to grow here in Central Florida. Calabaza pumpkin, that is a winter squash that grows very well here in the summer, also known as Cuban pumpkin. What else we got here? Multiple classes on diagnosing plant problems, whether it's diseases or insects, how to grow blackberries at home. So growing vanilla orchids. Vanilla orchids will grow outdoors in southern Florida because they are very tropical and it doesn't freeze down there. You can still grow them here, though, if you know what you're doing. So definitely look that up online. Go on YouTube, look up Hernando County government, and that's a really, really great resource to kind of get you started in a lot of different directions if you want to be more sustainable and produce more at home. And Ailes, yeah, I definitely agree that we need to promote more community gardens and home gardens.
Almost always tastes better if you grew it.
And Lily points out it's still cheaper to buy eggs than to raise chickens. Well, maybe in Pennsylvania it is, but down here we're pushing about 50 cents an egg. So too much more expensive. And true, if you were to have to go out and buy all the feed to provide all the food for your chickens, if you're able to free range them a bit in your yard, and if you can protect them from hawks and birds, coyotes, raccoons, everything out there likes to eat chickens. So you got to protect them too. But yeah, if you really want to know where your food comes from, go ahead and raise your own chickens, because then you know exactly where that egg came from. But it is hard to get that break-even point. People who have chickens and raise them, if they really did the math and figured out how much it costs per egg, it's not really cheap. So, Lily, are you planning on getting chickens up in Pennsylvania? You'll have to bring them in the house in the winter to keep them warm. So just keep that in mind. So, guys, if anybody watching us live has any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we will do our very best to answer them. And looks like Lily would have chickens if she had enough space. Well, if you have a spare bedroom, you could squeeze them all in there for the winter.
We had chickens all the time when I was growing up. We had 50 to 100 chickens. And
wow.
What amazed me was, we've got the standard farm fence up. It's what, 8 feet or 7 feet, something like that, for the chicken yard. And they don't fly over the fence, but there's a tree in the middle of the chicken yard, and they're 30 feet up in the tree roosting at night. And they're not smart enough to realize all you had to do was do that little flight thing over the fence, and they're free. So
they don't want to be free. They're going to get eaten.
But they are tasty little critters.
Yeah, and if you're able to basically free range them, like Charlene points out here, you're really not spending that much at all. And now, don't start asking me. I'm not the chicken expert here. We need to have Laura back on. She is the chicken and goat expert. I'll get a hold of her and we'll have her on here for these questions. But chickens, if you're going to feed them, you have to buy chicken feed, I guess Purina chicken chow or whatever. And you have to also give them grit because they need that. But if you're able to just let them wander the neighborhood, if your neighbors are okay with that and they can find their own food. I know that chickens do very well just grazing around and looking for insects, and they will eat a lot of insects, and it makes they end up producing very, very nice eggs. So that's one of the few things I do know. So Lily says her sister's neighbor has free range chickens and they range into her sister's yard too. If it was me, I have more important things to worry about. I wouldn't let it bother me. I could tell you though, if we still had huskies, if a free range chicken free ranged into my yard, huskies like chicken too. So let's just leave it at that. You know, I was driving to work the other day, and where was I? I was up in Four Corners, Spring Hill and Mariner, and there was a chicken alongside, a rooster alongside of the road. What are we in Key West or something? Or and yes, chickens do love mealy worms. Here, let me make myself a note to invite Laura. We have not had her on here for a while, and she, when it comes to horses, cattle, goats, chickens, all the above, she is the expert.
Yeah, my wife volunteers at Homosassa Park, and they have had chickens for years. I don't know what government agency provides them, but the chickens come in and live there for about 4 months. They swap them out, put some new chickens in, and they're using them as sentinel chickens to look for diseases. So
yeah, so they work for mosquito control. And let me see, in 2 weeks on March 13th, we are going to have Alyssa with Hernando County mosquito control on here with us.
Oh, she's very, very knowledgeable.
And it's that time of year to think mosquitoes again. It's been very nice all winter long, not having to worry about them. Even though they're still out there in the winter, you should always, use protection and mosquito repellent and this and that. I don't get many in my yard. My neighborhood does not have a lot of mosquitoes. I guess my neighbors don't have lots of old tires in the background and buckets of water and stuff like that.
All I know is that there's different types of mosquitoes, and the different types carry different diseases.
Yep.
And we happen to have one of the worst or two of the worst for carrying diseases here. So it really is important to do something about mosquitoes. So, and she knows what to do. She is a very, very brilliant little gal.
She'll be here with us in 2 weeks. So we'll be able to knock out all the mosquito questions then. And so let me go through my regular weekly list here. For any of you watching this presentation as a recording, if you have any questions, there is my email. The best way to get in touch with me is by email. Don't try catching me at the office. You got maybe a 50-50 chance of getting lucky and catching me, or less some weeks. Calling, you have an even worse chance of getting hold of me. Best thing to do is send an email, send lots of pictures. Pictures will help us answer your question a lot quicker and more efficiently. If you'd like to call our office, there is the phone number. Bernie is here on Thursdays, so you can call and actually speak with Bernie. Or if you're in the area in Hernando County, stop by the office, and Bernie's more than happy to help you out and try to answer your question. Follow us on Facebook. So if you're watching us on YouTube, go over and look us up on Facebook also, because we have classes, events. We do rain barrel classes. We do compost bin classes. We have Earth Day coming up the very beginning of April. Lots of online classes. We put all that on Facebook. So if you follow us on Facebook, gives you an idea of what we have coming up and what we're doing. Our Master Gardeners have a nursery. Here's the address. They are there Wednesday and Saturday mornings from 8:30 in the morning until noon right now. When we get further into summer, they'll start closing at 11, but right now they're there until noon. They have a great selection of both native and Florida-friendly plants. Like I said earlier, go ahead and check out our recorded classes on Hernando County Government's YouTube channel. There is a playlist for Florida-friendly landscaping also, with a whole bunch of recorded classes on there. So whatever you want to learn about, I'm new to Florida. What can I plant in my yard in the shade? What can I plant in the sun? What gets flowers? What do I have to keep in mind if I'm thinking about putting in a tree? There are classes on all those topics there. So just check that out. Here is Colby's email if you want to email him directly, but that's a real long email. I can never remember county emails. You guys got long emails. But Colby has a link tree, so if you go there, you'll be able to find out everything that he has coming up and is planning on. He takes care of registrations and information for our monthly rain barrel classes and compost bin classes. So go there, check it out, sign up, and we'll hopefully see you again really soon. And
Colby, do you?
I got a question for. Sorry, Bernie, but I got quite one for you here. So a peach tree question. I know you like that.
I do. That's one of those questions. I would have to see some actual pictures of how it was pruned. I would assume that if you see flowers, you're going to get some peaches. If you don't get flowers, you're not going to get peaches. If you pruned off all the proper branches, they won't flower this year. So
that is because peaches, plums, and nectarines must be pruned a certain way. Let me.
They need to be pruned like a wine glass. You want this wine glass effect where the center is all open and it, one stem coming up and then a group. You know, if you only have the capability of 2 or 3 to keep the center open, then that's the way it has to be pruned. It really needs to be like a wine glass. Assuming that it flowers and that it makes it through with no frost, once it sets the flowers, it will start producing little prunes or little peaches. I mean, so when the peaches are about the size of your little thumbnail, take off about half of them, and the growth of the peaches that are left will be much bigger than if you had left them all on there. From my own experience, the peaches that I were getting without pruning them were just barely like 1.25 inches. And after I started reducing the numbers, they started being like 2.5 inches. And man, Florida peaches are really good peaches. So it's worth the effort to reduce the number of fruit. They produce way too many, and you know it seems like it's a bad thing to go out and get rid of all those little baby peaches, but boy, does it give the ones that are left an opportunity to really get good.
Yeah, and there's a good amount that you need to know with raising peaches. So definitely, we threw a bunch of links in there about how to train and prune Florida peaches. Look up information, University of Florida information on pests and diseases. There's things that you need to be aware of that if you let them get out of control, good chance is going to kill your tree. So you can grow peaches here. And if this is his 3rd year, and if you pruned it correctly and you're doing everything else correctly, it could flower and fruit. It's that time, but there's a little bit of kind of background information you need to know to be really successful with peaches.
Third year peaches is about when they start production.
Yeah.
The other thing about peaches in Florida is that because it's warm so long, they grow a lot longer than they do up north. The trees are under a constant growing, and it's a strain on the trees. The trees have a relatively short life. Um, Probably a 15-year-old peach tree is absolutely as old as you'll see. A lot of them succumb starting at about the 10th year. So somewhere between 10 and 15 years, most Florida peach trees, uh, they just age out. They expire from old age. So happens.
It's tough here in Florida if you're a plant sometimes.
Yeah.
So Gloria has been trying to grow a vegetable garden for 3 years. They start out looking nice, but then they die out. My yard is all sand. Do I need to put anything in the sand to help them grow? Yes. What you probably need to do is somehow get a lot of compost and work compost into the soil. They have compost. If you live here in Hernando County, we have a program at the Hernando County landfill where they will give you free compost. They're making it on like an industrial scale. So you can contact the Hernando County Solid Waste Department about that. Even if you just buy bags of black cow manure or other compost from big box store, that's going to work. That's going to help. With vegetables, you must plant the right thing at the right time of year. If you don't, things will turn out very, very badly. If you go to the Hernando County government's YouTube channel, I know that I have beginning vegetable classes on there. And
anybody gardening in Florida needs a copy of this. And this is available online. Just Google that. Put the letters UF after that title. And this particular piece of paper will tell you what varieties to plant, tell you exactly when to plant, goes through basically everything you need to know. This gets you started to being a successful gardener. Won't cover everything in the world, but it covers enough things that you'll start being successful. This is the best thing that our university has done. You already paid for the university. You might as well get a copy. So
yeah, and I believe that's still their #1 downloaded or printed publication that they have.
It's the best publication they ever put out. That's why.
And follow that list about exactly what to plant, what time of year.
Yeah. Because if you're from up north at all, you were planning about the time we are harvesting. So
yes, yeah.
You know, we grow a lot of things in Florida only because they're so out of sequence. They're available for the rest of the world at a premium price because we have them when nobody else does. So
Florida used to be known as the winter vegetable basket for the nation. They would grow tons of vegetables down here when it was snowing up north, and they did very, very well. So like the green beans, yellow squash, zucchini, things like that, that you buy up north for Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, January, February, all is grown here in Florida. But you obviously don't grow it up north that time of year. Our seasons are very, very different for growing basically the same things as what you grow up north.
In fact, the seasons are different for the north, central, and south parts of Florida. What you do here, you would not do in Gainesville. And what you do in Gainesville absolutely won't work in Miami. So this publication does cover the various areas. It's split into north, central, and south. And it's unbelievably important to do things at the right time. The most wanted plant in a garden for newcomers is tomatoes. The hardest thing to grow for a newcomer is tomatoes because they were used to planting tomatoes in May and having tomatoes in the fall. In Florida, the weather about the 1st of June has beat the tomato plants down to the point where the first rain you get in June, the tomato plants are dead on the ground and it's all over.
Yep.
And it's very odd to plant things and plant them totally out of what you thought was the season. You know, they're done here when you would have planted them up north. It's too late to plant tomatoes in Hernando County if you don't have transplants. Uh, you know, you're not going to do it from seed because about the time they produce, they're going to die. So that's why the Florida Vegetable Gardening Guide is the Bible for the newcomers.
And like Bernie said, you can Google that. If you just Google UF Vegetable Gardening Guide, it should be your first choice in Google, and you can read through that. And like I said, for anybody trying to vegetable garden in Florida, especially people who have done it in other parts of the country, that is definitely your best guide to kind of get you off on the right foot and get you started.
You know, that trick of putting the name of something in UF to get a university publication works so well. You know, I don't care what it is. You can Google UF blueberries. You can Google UF lettuce. You can Google UF anything. And if there's a publication, it pops up.
Yep.
And it is amazing how many publications the university has gotten. Over the years, they've written something just about on everything. The extension offices provide publications, so they have some research labs scattered all over the state. Those people are providing publications, so it's pretty hard to have a problem that they don't have a paper on. You know, if you want to know about trees or you want to know about a particular bug, what bugs are on my tomato plant? UF. Anything, just take and stick a UF and see if you can't get a publication, because there are thousands and thousands of them, and they're all information pertinent to Florida. So you don't have to, you know, a lot of times you'll Google something. I'm having a problem with my oak tree, and you say Google oak tree problems. Well, the University of Michigan oak problems are going to be so totally different from Florida.
Yeah.
It's not going to be of any use. But if you stick those two little letters UF on there, you'll get some information written by an honest expert of Florida problems, somebody that is here just to help us and do it. Everybody gets, you know, so many people are afraid to go after these things because there might be a little expense or something. You've already paid for it. It's all your money is as the tax dollars have done it. This is the only benefit you're going to get. Take advantage of it.
And you know, you could join a Facebook gardening group and ask everybody else on there, but unfortunately, most of the other people who are in the group know probably less than you do. So, and it's funny. I see pictures and questions in this now where I definitely know what it is, and you start reading what everybody thinks it is, and it's like, oh my gosh, some of these people really have no idea. You will always find at least one person gets it right, but then you'll see 99 other people who get it really, really, really wrong. So
we used to have a lady that was quite active. She would be on the radio locally quite often. She did a lot of things. I don't want to mention any names because everybody's instant I say it, everybody will know who she is. And if you say anything bad, this woman had a tremendous following, but there were a lot of times when her advice wasn't quite what the university would have recommended. So I think that's a nice way of saying that. So if you need advice and you know, go to the source, and the real source is the land grant college. They were established by the federal government They were put together. This whole system was done in the 1860s, I believe.
Mhm.
The extension offices followed about 5 years later. Abraham Lincoln, I believe, was the president that started the land grant college system, the extension service, which was an extension of the colleges, because the if you're in a big state, you have a land grant college that's 200 miles away. At that point, there wasn't any transportation, there wasn't any communications, and the extensions were necessary to get this information that was being learned out to the people. So, we're in the information business, and yeah, that was the Morale Act.
And we will even tell you how to hard boil an egg if you don't know how to. So we really do have information on pretty much everything.
If you need it to live, we pretty much have done the research on what it takes, and it's all free. And I cannot overemphasize the fact this information was paid for already by you. This is your knowledge, and if you don't take advantage of it, you're wasting something that was a really precious resource.
Okay, we got one last question here because it's pretty much time to wrap it up for today. Gloria asks, are there any vegetables that grow well in all sand? Can any of them be planted now? Sweet potatoes will do fine in pretty much pure sand. Other things that you could plant from seed right now, you could plant green beans or yellow beans, bush beans / snap beans. You should really, they're not going to do really well in just pure sand. Sweet potatoes would probably be your best bet.
Yeah.
What is this? This is just the end of February, beginning of March. For sweet potatoes, I'd wait until about April 1st to put them in. But if nothing else, you could do the whole, garden and sweet potatoes, and you should get quite a few sweet potatoes. Lily mentions okra, and that is true. You could try planting okra also. If you have very sandy soil, there's a very good chance you're going to have root knot nematodes. And if you have them, they will totally wipe out your okra. Root knot nematodes love okra. It's their absolute favorite.
Yeah, if you're on an old
Try
garden
okra also.
If you really want to grow vegetables, you want to try doing things. Buy a bag of garden soil, punch a hole in it, plant your plant in the bag of garden soil,
Yep.
and wet it. Keep it watered, but don't overwater. It's very, very important that you don't overwater. And the plant will grow in that bag, and you can just sit it on the back porch and grow anything you want in there.
Or you could try container gardening. You could build a raised bed and purchase quality potting soil, mix in some compost, grow your things in that. So there's a lot of options. But if you're going to, I know from experience, if you're growing in the ground, traditional vegetable garden, it takes time constantly adding compost and organic matter to build that soil up. If you stick with it, after a certain point, you'll end up with beautiful soil, but it's more than just, there's really not much that grows in the pure sand. Sand spurs, weeds, they all do great in sand.
Yeah.
And Strawberry Festival starts today. I guess that's the big one in Plant City. I've been there before.
It is.
Strawberries are expensive this year. Even on sale, they're not cheap. So, and Lily knows of somebody who used plastic lawn chairs and plastic bins with drainage holes, and boom, it was instant raised beds. So you can get creative and think outside of the box and come up with a lot of different ways of grow. I have an in-ground garden, but I have a lot of things growing in pots, 5-gallon buckets, other things also. So Should we get
5-gallon
creative?
bucket will grow a tomato plant. So, if you really want to grow a tomato, go get a 5-gallon bucket and enough potting soil to fill it and a transplant. Put it in the bucket and you'll have tomatoes this year. You could do that right now.
Peppers, eggplants, all the same.
Yeah.
They all need about a 5-gallon bucket. If you go on Hernando County's YouTube channel, I should have a recording from a class I did on growing vegetables in containers, which covers all that. So we have a bunch of resources. So guys, it looks like it's about that time of day. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for all the questions. We will be back here again next week. I'll go ahead and try getting a hold of Laura, see if she could join us next week for all those chicken questions, given the current price of eggs, I guess. And thank you so much for being here. Coming up in, how many weeks would that be? I'm not sure when we're going to celebrate it. Okay. Technically, I think we're going to have our anniversary show on April 10th, which is only a few weeks off. And at that point, that would be the 5-year anniversary of us doing this crazy stuff just about every Thursday. So it used to be me and Lily, and me and Colby, and me and Colby and Bernie, and we have guests, and we talk about grilling iguanas and a little bit of everything else in between. So be sure to come back next week. We'll be back here next Thursday morning. Gloria, thank you so much for joining us. You are very, very welcome. And Anne-Marie, like always, thank you. Hope the olives are all doing well up there in Madison County, I believe, basically Georgia, but still technically Florida. So right on the line there. But we will see everybody again next week at 10 a.m. So we'll see you then, guys. Thanks. Bye.